Welcome to the Cheer Athlete. I'm LT, the Cheer PT, and today we're going to talk about a big question in cheerleading and cheer coaching. Should conditioning be used as a consequence when a flyer falls? It's common practice if the stunt hits the ground, if the flyer comes down and hits the ground, that the stunt may run laps or do push-ups or do burpees or crank out some bear crawls. The idea is that the mistakes equal a punishment. But here's the problem, and here's my big problem. The research and the cheer experience, and even some coaches all point to one truth. Conditioning as punishment can actually increase the risk of injury and not reduce it. Today, I'm going to break down the why, and I'll share some information from the cheer world and from research articles. And then at the end, stay tuned for the end. I'm going to give you 5 tips you can use right away to reduce falls and to keep your athletes safer. Welcome to the Cheer Athlete Podcast, where we bring coaches, parents, and athletes expert tips and advice to help keep cheerleaders healthy, strong, and at the top of their game. Now let's go. So this topic came up because it started to germinate in my brain because a friend of mine posted a applause for a football team, that Syracuse football team, that at the end of the game they had won, but they didn't perform to their expected ability level. And so they, at the end of the game, they ran laps and did conditioning after the game was over to let them know that they needed to be in better condition and to get after the ball. And I argued with my friend who is a former cheerleader and then had other cheer coaches that I'm friends with also chime in that, well, so my point of view is, I don't like that they use the conditioning as a at that moment in time to punish them, because I think it's important to do conditioning. I think we need to learn how to like conditioning. It's like, your mom ran around and she made you eat your peas when you didn't like peas, and you had to sit at the table. This is my sister, because I ate the peas, and I just put an idea in her head when she was little that if you mushed the peas, that the guts came out. And so she didn't want to eat her peas, and my mom would make her sit at the table until she finished her peas. And my sister was stubborn, and she would just sit there all night. And it didn't make her eat peas. Now she's a grown woman now, and we laugh at the situation, and she eats peas now. But at the time, the punishment for eating the vegetables wasn't worth her stress and my mom's stress either. I don't think that conditioning should be used as a punishment or even a consequence, because I think conditioning is really important. A couple of my friends, I agree. I understand their point of view. Like, you do need to bring attention to where there was something off, so these kids weren't conditioned enough to really be able to run and do the work that they needed to do. So they need to get there and do that. But why not start at the next practice? Why not, have them be in bed early, make them have a curfew, make them sit and watch films, make them do something that's more productive. So first, let's dive into cheer, right? This got more into my head because there was a couple of posts on the cheer moms groups, or there's one post particularly that I disagreed with. I don't think it's good to do conditioning. And so I want to talk about what happens when you condition on top of a stunt coming down, a flyer hitting the ground. So fatigue makes falls worse. Research has shown that most cheer injuries happen during practice, especially when athletes are tired. Fatigue slows reaction time, it worsens technique, which makes the stunt group more likely to drop the flyer on the next time they do it. You might not know when your kids are fatigued. They're not going to come in and say, like, Coach, I'm tired. They're just going to go. But you can see when stunts are starting to wobble more and they're not holding solid, they're likely tired. So the next rep, like, either pull them out and don't let them go and do that so that the flyer doesn't risk falling, or change up what you're doing. and recognize when they're fatigued. You're the coach, you need to pay attention to what your team is doing. And even though you want to get through this one stunt routine and make it solid today, it might not be the day to do it because they may not have slept well. They may have had a test. They may have had an argument with their boyfriend, and they may be just anxious and anxiety driven, and that also makes their body fatigue quicker. So learn to react to what they're doing in practice and pull them out before they fall. Conditioning on top of, if a flyer hitting the ground builds fear instead of confidence. A 2024 study in the Journal of Emerging Sports Studies found that the way a coach communicates and instructs is directly linked to how much injury and anxiety a cheerleader feels. Punitive environments raise anxiety, and anxious athletes are less stable and more hesitant in the air. So they're not going to hit as well. It doesn't fix the problem. Most falls aren't about a lack of effort. The kids aren't out there not trying their best. The stunts come down because of timing, maybe strength. And yes, you can make an argument that they have to get stronger, absolutely. But the timing of it is what I'm talking about. And then timing, so the timing of the stunt, maybe they don't have the strength. Maybe they have imbalances, whether it be the stunting imbalance or, the cheerleader in themselves doesn't have the right balance between motor control and being able to hold something, or their body positions are off. So if you just have them come down, the flyer come down, you just make them do push-ups and sprints, it's not actually fixing those body positions. It's not fixing the timing. So instead, work on the timing instead of trying to make them get more tired by conditioning. So I want to talk a little bit next about some voices from the cheer world. And these, I found on ChatGPT, and there's some boards out there that I didn't even know existed. And I did check them. So we'll just dive a little bit into them, and you can go check yourself as well. On FierceBoard, which is a new forum that I don't know about, I'm going to really have to dive into it. Maybe I'm going to go join. If you've joined it, please drop me a comment and let me know, if you're on that, and is it worthwhile, and is it productive to get more information and to provide information as well. So one cheerleader wrote, everyone on the team has been complaining about back issues because of the bear crawls used as punishment. I understand conditioning, but there has to be a better option. Another coach on the same thread commented, coaches who do this haven't been properly trained on the risks or the causes, and they don't care if they injure the athletes who have been put in their trust. I disagree with that. I think every coach does care. I just think they're not looking at the big picture in the moment. And even Jim Lord, who is the former director of AACCA, put it when he announced new rules for younger cheer squads. The intent is to keep the younger school cheerleaders performing more fundamental skills, and this will help improve safety at these levels. So notice the same theme here: safety, skill progression, and using conditioning as a tool, not a threat. When we build foundational stunts, if a stunt isn't hitting at a higher level and the flyer is coming down and hitting the ground, their whole group is not ready to go do that. So bring it down and get them into the point where they are solid at a lower level skill. So are you ready? We're going to get into the 5 tips that reduce falls and injuries. Also, if you are looking for a way to, really improve your conditioning, improve your strength and conditioning, and when you should do it, I do dive into some of this in my book, Strength and Conditioning for the Cheer Athletes, which is out on Amazon, and the link will be below. And they, go over different exercises and more into the philosophy as to why it's important not to train when you're tired, and how to improve recovery time so that they can be better and you can build strength. I also talk about how it's important to do strength and conditioning work at the end of practice, not in the middle of it or at the beginning. So without further ado, let's dive into the 5 tips to reduce the falls. So, again, if punishment isn't the answer, let's look at some research-based tips that should help you to reduce the falls and keep the flyers safer. Nothing is foolproof, so take it with a grain of salt and do your own research and see what your team needs. First, build strength and stability where it matters. Like I talked about in my book, you want to use core, ankle, hip strength, and shoulder stability drills at the end of every practice. Stronger bases and stable flyers means less wobble. When they get stronger, they're going to do better. Use this strength and conditioning at the end of practice. They may fatigue during their conditioning, and that's okay. That will get better over time. But use that as a regular setting after practice to help build. Ideally, it's going to happen on an off day, or at least like 3 hours between practice. That would be ideal, not right in the middle of practice or at the beginning of practice, because that gives them time to recover and they can get some fuel in them to help make them stronger during practice as well. My cheerleaders, when I was at Holy Cross, we had to get in the weight room pretty early in the morning, at 5 a.m. And it was only there certain days, but it was the same days that we practiced. And so they practiced at 5 a.m. They weight trained at 5 a.m. and we worked out at 6 p.m. We gave them enough time. They could take a nap in between. They were able to refuel. They were able to eat. They had to go to class. Still had to respect if they were tired and if they were sore from that day, but they got their strength work in. Make sure we have extra spots. Now, I don't think extra spots always means you're going to reduce your risk, but I do think spotting is key. And I think learning how to spot is most important, because just having the body standing there, watching somebody coming flying at you is scary. I was spotting a stunt. We were learning a new, 2.5 pyramid, and the flyer came down and I went in to grab her and my thumb caught just right because I wasn't underneath enough. She didn't hit the ground, but I injured my thumb. And this is when I was coaching. So we need to know how to spot. We need to know where to go. Sometimes injuries are going to happen, but the catastrophic ones are the ones we're trying to avoid. And really learning how to spot and where to be and where to grab is going to help make a big difference. So especially your little minis, start teaching them right away where to grab. Do it not when they're up in a stunt. Do it on the ground and the fall drills and all that stuff, to help them learn how to be better and to be more solid as they spot. Teach safe falling techniques. Don't wait for the chaos to happen. Practice what to do if a flyer does fall and does come down. A lot of times the flyer doesn't have control, or she's towing, she's heeling, she's hiking her hip because maybe the base is off, or maybe because she's not straightening her leg. Doesn't matter who's at fault. It's a stunt group. She needs to learn how to come down. If she's falling and flailing and reaching for somebody, that's going to put her more at risk and the people on the ground more at risk as well. So teach them how to, you decide as a team, are you going to come, is the flyer going to come up? Is the flyer going to come clean? They're going to come into the hands here. Where are they going to grab? Practice the falls before you're up in the air. Manage fatigue. Encourage rest and recovery. Encourage the kids to go home, drink extra water, to do some mobility work when they get home to loosen up the muscles that they've been working on. Get them to go to bed at a reasonable hour, not stay up until 2 a.m. doing their homework. Don't overload the stunt groups with punishment laps after a stunt drops. Plan practices so that the hardest stunts happen before the fatigue sets in and they end with more technique and not exhaustion. And then focus on communication and feedback. After a fall, ask what went wrong, what happened, was it grip off, was it timing? Not blaming anyone, but everyone can take ownership for what they need to do better. Do they need to focus on staying tighter and getting their body position right? Use those mistakes as feedback loops, not fear loops. Give positive reinforcement to help give support and help support skill learning rather than punishment. You can use videotapes to help this as well. I think that's a key thing in helping kids to see, okay, I need to be here better. So bottom line, conditioning is very valuable. When it's tied to punishment, it creates fear, fatigue, and frustration. That's not how you build safer stunts. Instead, you want to focus on strength. You want to focus on safety and communication and not pushing through fatigue. Build that strength and conditioning outside of practice. Teach them how to identify what they need to work on and get that better, get that conditioning after practice. And remember, every fall is an opportunity to learn. It's not an excuse to punish. If you want to dive deeper into strategies for keeping your cheerleaders safe and injury-free, I put together a free injury prevention guide, and there's 3 tips in there for ways to help do that. And you can grab your copy in my show notes. And then until next time, I hope to see you again. Let me know if you have any questions or if you completely disagree. I've got to go answer some questions, some feedback on TikTok that some coaches do disagree with me. But my big push right here is to help prevent these injuries and to promote progression before perfection before progression, and show up safely and not push through fatigue. Have a great week. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe out. Take life one step at a time. You can do anything you put your mind to. And as my dear friend Drew Kelleher said, you're responsible for your own vibes. Let's go get the day.